Hello, people. I'm here with another person who needs no introduction. He's Teacher Will. He's great. How are you, Teacher Will? And welcome to this small channel.
Oh, first of all, good evening and good afternoon. Hello. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I want to just make a quick comment. Small channel, listen, we all start at zero. It doesn't matter if it's small, medium, or large, because in my opinion, I'm appreciative and humbled that you invited me. And I think that numbers only tell the particular story. So,
Yeah.
I, quote unquote, on YouTube as well have a quote unquote small channel, but I'm
Mhm.
not limited by that because if we impact someone's life and if we impact someone's life to make a benefit in terms of their English goals, then that's most important to me. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you for being here. For me, it's a huge pleasure. I am really honored and humble to have you as well. Why did you decide to teach English? Is my first question.
So, quick story. When I was a kid, a lot of times, or oftentimes, people thought that I would teach English, particularly my mother. I was kind of like, no, it's not enough money. I don't want to be a teacher, it's too much responsibility. I actually was in the business world for over 20 years, mostly in business development jobs, sales, and marketing jobs across four different industries. And
Mhm.
how I came into the world of teaching, I
Mhm.
was lucky enough to go to college and get, two grad degrees. I did my undergrad in English and history. I got a grad degree in business and I got business and also in education. But actually, how I stumbled into teaching,
Mhm.
2008, I'm American. In 2008, there was a financial crisis. I needed to take care of myself and my family. I was running into, time warp to 2011. The economy in the US was really still not doing well. So I
Mhm.
was working a temp job. I heard it advertisement or advertisement, depending on how you pronounce it. Learn English, travel the world. I heard it again when I was driving back from my temp assignment, and then I heard it for a third time when I was actually at home watching National Geographic. So in my culture, they say confirmation, God gives you confirmations in threes. So I actually, in 2011, though I'm American and though I did my undergrad in English and history, I went back and I got my TESOL certification. Shout
Mhm.
out to Deborah and Mira of C English Academy. And so that's how I entered the world of teaching. So I really had, no desire to do it.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I'm glad that I am. I'll be celebrating my 10th year teaching in October. And for me, it's kind of like an avenue, a place where it leverages all of my passions and all of my previous experiences, both personally and professionally. So that's kind of how I ended up teaching.
Awesome. What is a lesson that teaching has taught you?
Oh, that's a great question. I would think many lessons, but the first thing that came to my mind is for me is always be humble and realize that as much as you are a teacher or as much as I am a teacher, I'm also a student. I'm also a learner.
I say the same thing because we have to be humble. We learn from our students.
Exactly. There's a motto, that I try to instill with the ATW family. I don't necessarily know if they remember it, but there are really two mottos that I live by or try to live by personally and professionally,
Mhm.
but particularly as it relates to as teacher will. The first is walk the walk, one of my favorite idioms, walk the walk and talk the talk. Because for me, both personally and professionally, that idiom means to me is that your words and your actions should be the same, and
Yeah.
particularly as a human being that happens to be a teacher, I think that's very important. If I'm
Mhm.
teaching English or even if I'm in daily life, what I say and what I do should be the same. And I think that gives credibility as a teacher. And the
Mhm.
second motto that's really, I hope the ATW family recognizes is that we learn together. And I really, really believe that. Like oftentimes people, and I'm sure you run into this as well, oh, your teacher Rod, oh, your teacher Will. It's like, listen, I happen to be a human being that happens to go by the title
Yeah.
of teacher Will on social media. Yet you know English is my native language. I know how to speak another language other than English, and so as a result we learn together. I think is really appropriate because in life as a human being, as a teacher. I learn from my students. Hopefully, they learn from me. So,
Mhm.
and that's also important, I think, because oftentimes I think what happens is that when we're teaching students or
Mhm.
learners, regardless of their nationality, regardless of their level of English,
Mhm.
is that there are a lot of time there's an assumption made that, oh, a teacher is
Mhm.
supposed to feed all of the information. No, not my perspective. Teaching for me is a symbiotic relationship between myself and the learner. So we learn together is really important to me.
Yes, when I decided to teach English was because I love the language. If it wasn't for the language, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. But I am a non-native teacher, and most of the people are crazy to learn from native teachers. What is your opinion about it?
Well, let me offer it. This is my perspective.
Of
Just because
course.
I'm a native English speaker and just because I'm from the United States of America and my
Mm-hmm.
native language happens to be English does
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily mean that I could teach. That's like to say, if your listeners, like for example, Teacher Rod, if I went to you and I said, oh, listen, your native language is Portuguese, can you teach me Portuguese? You
Yes.
might say yes, but more than likely you might say no. And I'm like, but why? Your native language is Portuguese. Why can't you teach me? Well,
Mm-hmm.
teaching is an art, it's a skill, it's a
Mm-hmm.
profession. And so, for me, I recognize I have a privilege being a native English speaker. I recognize that. But for me, it was important to go back to school and get my TESOL certification. Why? Because I
Mm-hmm.
was a proponent of, getting certified, getting education. Also, though I'm an American, I did my first international assignment where I currently live right now in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the requirements. So I would encourage anyone, if they have the ability
Yeah.
to get, to get a TESOL certification or a CELTA or a TEFL, if they're able to financially afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for number one, to me, having, regardless of one's nationality, being native or non-native does not make an individual a teacher.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, I recognize and realize personally that there is native speakerism that exists in the English language community, the ESL industry,
Yes.
that is perpetuated. It also
Mm-hmm.
perpetuated the system in itself, and also perpetuated by those individuals that happen to be learners.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, I think that ultimately there is a difference between a learner having a preference. Like I can prefer what I prefer. I prefer I prefer chocolate ice cream before vanilla ice cream, or
Mm-hmm.
I prefer drinking tea
Mm-hmm.
at night before coffee. Preference is one thing, but what I would encourage learners to do is understand the difference between preference and understanding that, and the
Yeah.
difference between bias,
Yeah.
whether that bias is explicit or implicit. And so, to conclude about this particular topic, no, it does not matter, in my humble opinion, regardless of one's nationality,
Yeah.
if it's native or non native. That conversation to me
Mm-hmm.
needs to be eradicated. And what I try to do, at least, I'm not necessarily sure always if I'm successful about it. When
Mm-hmm.
people say, and let me preface by saying content providers on various social medias have every right to do what he or she wants to do. I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily know their reason nor their intent, and I'm not judging them because I have no right to. What I like to do is that there are particular slogans that I don't like using because I think it perpetuates a system of arrogance, ignorance, and bias.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I hear people say, "Oh, learn to speak like a native, sound like an," no, that doesn't work for me. Again, I'm not knocking anybody that does it. I don't know the intent around why people do it. Could
Mm-hmm.
talk about that if you want later. But for me, I like
Mm-hmm.
to use language that is more inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to speak naturally.
Yeah.
Own your English for yourself, because numerically speaking, there are more people in the world that are non-native English speakers than there
Yeah.
are native English speakers. So, I think certain terminology I tend not to use, and I at least for people that choose to follow me, if they do, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand that's a choice, I
Mm-hmm.
hope people think critically when they're watching my videos, because that's one of the things I try to do.
I agree because I had to go through two hindrances, being a disabled person and being a no native teacher. And when
Mm-hmm.
I went to Spain to get my master's degree, which was an online thing, teaching English as a foreign language.
Right.
I did because I love the language and I went to study accent reduction. Let me explain to you. People came to me and said, "You want to cue people's accent?" I said, "No. I think accent is one of the most beautiful things and one of the identities that we have. If I wanted to cue people's identity, I would study accent elimination. What I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to help was to make people speak clearer, if you know what I mean. Because sometimes
Exactly.
they are not understood, there's noisy communication, and that's an embarrassment for them. The word accent reduction, I agree with you. I like Spanish accent, I like every accent, I think it's beautiful. And you can see that I have a Brazilian accent on my English. We can eradicate accent. There's no way, because there are sounds in each language. And I agree with you entirely, but I am proud of being able to study distance learning in 2013 and doing my master's degree there. And it was amazing for me.
And I think, Teacher Rod, that's the testament in terms of just who you are as a person. I mean, I would encourage any couple points on that. I would encourage anyone that if they have the economic means and they particularly have the desire to do it, again, to get some sort of, again, certification, master's educational
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I think what happens is a couple things. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking at the ESL industry, there is no, as far as I remember, there is no international body of accreditation that's
No.
recognized. So therefore, it's kind of like, for me, I view teaching as a profession, as a job. I'm a proponent of education. I'm a proponent of certifications. I'm a proponent of, as one qualification. That certainly does not mean that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the elements. So if a teacher is going to be teaching English as a second language, foreign language to whoever the learners is
Mm-hmm.
that I believe that part of qualifications is
Mm-hmm.
education,
Mm-hmm.
work experience, skills, and talents. And oftentimes we live in an industry where, because we have no international regulations, everybody can put their name next to, oh, I'm a teacher, but hey, I'm sorry, I personally look at qualifications. That is my statement. It's kind of like, if I'm going to go to a doctor, if I'm going to go to a
Yeah.
lawyer, would I go to a doctor or a lawyer that has no work experience? Would I go to a doctor or lawyer that has no skills or talents? Would I go to a
Mm-hmm.
doctor or lawyer that has no education, no master's degree, no doctorate degree or certification?
Mm-hmm.
Most
Mm-hmm.
people would say no. And yet, when it comes to teaching, there seems to be a disconnect. That's point
Yeah.
one. Point number two is, I think it's important, at least from my own perspective, to distinguish between those teachers that are teaching as a profession and those that are teaching on social media. Certainly, there is a disconnect. I recognize and realize the value of social media. I understand, and I don't want to be a hypocrite because I am on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, in my humble opinion, come to social media to be entertained.
Yeah.
Most people come to be entertained and to laugh at, and that's fine. That's social media by design. And that's certainly not to say that social media cannot aid an individual in their English journey, whether
Yeah.
they're on YouTube or whether they're looking at content on
Yeah.
YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, whatever it
Yeah.
is. I
Yeah.
would consider that supplemental information.
Yes.
Yet, teaching is a profession, and hopefully learners recognize that and understand that, hey, there are differences. Last comment, I would say it's very interesting in most places in the world, most
Mm-hmm.
cultures that I'm aware of. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm an American, I live in the Middle East, I've traveled in parts of Europe. If when I'm talking to most individuals, not all,
Mm-hmm.
but when you hear the word teacher, it's typically held in a very high esteem or regard,
Mm-hmm.
respected in people's cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it seems as though that when it comes to overall qualifications, there seems to be a missing link. And again, those are my opinions. But I do think that it is important that if a teacher is going to do this as a profession,
Yeah.
he or she needs to understand the difference between teaching on social media and teaching as a profession. And learners need
Mm-hmm.
to understand that as
Mm-hmm.
well, in
And
my
I
opinion.
also think that being a teacher is a gift. You have to have the gift to be a teacher because
Mm,
we are teaching people, in our case, another language. In my school, I work with my wife. My wife is also an English teacher. We try to help as many kids as we can. We give scholarships to these children so they pay the amount that they can pay. And one day a student of mine came to me and said, "Teacher, last weekend we had a party at home. We had pizza." I said, "Yeah, what were you celebrating?" He said, "No, we weren't celebrating anything. We had pizza." And that brought tears to my eyes because pizza for them was the party itself. It was no
Okay.
celebration. The father could buy a pizza for them to eat during the weekend.
Right.
And for me, that was like I had tears in my eyes at that time because it was a very powerful story. I said, I am trying to give this teenager a profession or teaching English, and he was very skilled. To me, that's important to learn a lesson from the student and also teach them. I don't know if you know what I mean, but
No,
that's
I
what I
do. And
think, you know?
I do. No, first of all, I think it's a wonderful and it's a blessing that you're able to give your learners and your students a scholarship. So
Mm-hmm.
continued blessings with that. To
Yeah.
your point, I think that teachers, let me make a personal statement. I think, again, my name on social media is quote unquote teacher Will, but I think I as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
I've in the course of my tenure as a teacher, I've
Mm-hmm.
worn different hats. I've been a teacher, I've been a father, I've been a mother, I've been an actor, I've been a
Yeah.
psychiatrist, I've been a
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
And I think those are gifts and talents. And certainly, it is again, coming from the business world, it was something that I would not think that I'd end up doing, and
Mm-hmm.
I foresee, celebrating 10 years in October, I foresee doing this until I cease to exist off the planet Earth. So again, to your point, I think it's a gift, I think it's a talent, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
we wear many different hats.
Is there anything that you can tell my students the reason why they should keep studying English?
Okay. What I would say is this: research would show that English is a global or one of the global international languages. No
Mm-hmm.
one can dispute the fact that English is not needed if one wants to excel professionally. If one wants, English is the language of the internet, it is the language of business, it is the language of commerce, it is the language of entertainment. And certainly by having this particular skill, it will open up doors that necessarily might not be open to you should you just decide that you want to just speak your native language. So ultimately, what I would say is this: the choice ultimately is for that learner, for he or
Mm-hmm.
she to decide if English is important to
Mm-hmm.
them. And if indeed they want to do it, I like to say, I encourage the following. It's something that I call the G triple P,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they have to have a goal. Like, what is their goal? Goals come to why. Yes, they know English is important, but why are you doing it? What's your goal? Are you using it so that are you utilizing English or learning English for immigration purposes, for your job, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to speak with your friends abroad? Are you
Mm-hmm.
doing it because you're going to university and you want to get some sort of higher education? Or
Mm-hmm.
you simply, is your goal just to be able to communicate with one of your friends or understand a movie? So first is the goal. And I think that after that comes the P, what I like to call plan. Your plan is your roadmap. Your plan is, okay, I have a goal to learn English. What is my plan? Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to do self study? Am I going to do language schools, institutes? Am I going to do a tutor or coach, face to face, online? And within that plan, I would encourage people to have short term goals and long term goals within their plan. Because ultimately, when I've heard students say, oh, I want to be fluent in like 30 days or 60 days. Well, were you fluent in your native language in 30 or 60 days? Most people would
Yes.
say no. Therefore, if your native language, in your case, for most of your listeners, might be Portuguese, if you didn't learn Portuguese in 30 and 60 days, and Portuguese is a language, English is the same way. And should you choose, if there's anyone out there thinking that you
Mm-hmm.
can learn English in 30 days or 60 days or 3 months, respectfully, you are being bamboozled or hoodwinked. But I digress. So the second is having a plan. The
Mm-hmm.
next P I like to call pray because I'm a spiritual individual. If you don't believe in a higher power,
Yes.
God, no problem. Call it
Mm-hmm.
belief in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the last P that I think is extremely important
Mm-hmm.
is you have to produce. You
Mm-hmm.
actually have to do something. You
Mm-hmm.
actually have to put in motion action of speaking and writing. So you have a G triple P. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would encourage people to adopt that or think about that if they want. And then
Mm-hmm.
also recognizing and realize that, hey, there might be times in your English journey that you will be discouraged or you will not be as
Yeah.
motivated, or that, hey, you know what, you might be ridiculed by those closest to you or people outside of you, but don't pay those people no mind. And if you have a dream to learn English, it is possible as long or you choose to have the opportunity to adopt the G triple P and also to practice, be consistent, and be motivated and have that motivation be
Mm-hmm.
internal. Not to say that you cannot be motivated by outside individuals, not to say that you cannot be motivated or inspired, say, by Teacher Rod's story or
Mm-hmm.
because Teacher Rod is a teacher, but ultimately have a goal, plan, pray, produce, and attract those traits and
Mm-hmm.
skills of consistency, practice, dedication, and motivation.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
You're totally right. I agree with you 100%. And one last question before we go to the rapid round game. What is fluency to you?
Fluency, it's a great question. Fluency to me in English is the ability to communicate your thoughts, ideas, dreams, and hopes the same way that whatever your native language is.
Mm-hmm.
Fluency to me is a lifelong process. I oftentimes think that sometimes people confuse the following: fluency, proficiency, and accent. Accent, I define as the distinctive way in which you speak that is shaped by your
Yeah.
culture, your economic level, your education.
Mm-hmm.
Proficiency, I would define as particular skills and tasks that you're able to do at certain levels of your English journey. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
just begin, that's why in the ESL industry we have different levels like elementary or upper elementary, intermediate, B1,
Mm-hmm.
C1. That's proficiency. But
Mm-hmm.
fluency to me is a lifelong process, and understand that, hey, you know what, it's lifelong, and don't get confused between fluency and proficiency. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a native English speaker. I am still learning to be fluent in the language. I will be fluent from the time that I remember to speak English until the day that I die.
Yeah.
So that's how I define
Yeah.
fluency.
I agree because people think that fluency is speaking fast.
Yeah,
You
that's to
know.
me. No, I mean, I understand why people would think that, but I don't
Mhm.
necessarily think it is necessary for people to speak fast. And
Yeah.
under fluency, fluency for me means the four major aspects of what? Clarity,
Mm-hmm.
pronunciation,
Yes.
how you pronounce or say words,
Mm-hmm.
intonation, the
Mm-hmm.
rising and falling of my voice,
Mm-hmm.
and enunciation. That to me are
Yeah.
the components of fluency, which is lifelong. So I would encourage learners that are listening
Yeah.
that, hey, listen, focus on your fluency, focus on your clarity, focus on your pronunciation. I did a video a while back on my YouTube channel, ask underscore teacher Will,
Mm-hmm.
talking about how to make an English cake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, briefly, if you're making a cake, what are the ingredients of a cake? Most people would say like butter, flour, eggs, baking powder, right? So if you think of a cake, I would ask individuals to think of their English as a cake. What are the ingredients of a cake? Pronunciation, intonation, clarity, and
Yeah.
enunciation. And then after
Mm-hmm.
you have those are the foundations, right? And then most
Mm-hmm.
people, they make a cake, they have an icing, whether it's buttercream or vanilla
Mm-hmm.
or chocolate.
Yeah.
The icing to me represents accent. And so what I've encouraged learners to say is this, because again, I think that sometimes learners are focused on, humbly speaking, the wrong things, but they might be conditioned to do that, or that's the only thing they think. There are some learners that think that, oh my God, having an accent and sounding like a native is the most important
Yeah.
thing. Well, here's the question. If I'm going to eat a cake, what's more important, the foundation or the icing? The
Yes.
same thing in English. If you're going to speak English, what's more important? The foundations of clarity, pronunciation,
Mhm.
enunciation, intonation, or the icing? So I would say
Yes.
focus on the foundation.
I agree. I agree entirely. Now we're going to play a little bit because we're going to the rapid round game. The first one, peace is
Achievable through prayer.
traveling the world,
A dream.
teaching English,
Interesting.
teacher will on teacher will.
Oh, that's a tough one. Teacher will on teacher will. A spiritual individual sharing his perspective, hopefully helping other individuals by encouraging them to believe that all things are possible.
And the last one, our mutual friend, Christian Sanders.
Oh, the legend, friend, brother, um, out of the box thinker, respect him a lot, and undervalued, in my opinion, and underappreciated. And I think misconfused by some people in the industry. I call him the legend. I have much respect for him, much respect, and I
He's
hope he knows
awesome.
that.
He's
Christian, if
awesome.
you don't know that I have respect for you, brother, then it's on video. All right, there it is.
Teacher Will, now it's your turn. You ask me questions. Don't go easy.
Okay, I got it. I wrote them down. Okay, your favorite color.
Blue.
If I gave you $1 million, what's the first thing you would do with the money?
I would build a school to teach English for free to a good amount of people.
The biggest misconception of you is what?
That I'm not able to achieve my goals because I am.
Okay. Question number 4. What is it that you would want your English learners to know about English?
That English as a lingua franca would open doors and would help you to communicate with the world wherever you are.
Last question. If you could describe Teacher Will in you have a choice. Describe Teacher Will in 3 words or 2 sentences. What would that be?
3 words: strong, enlightened, and a role model.
Thank you for. I like you being in the hot seat, Teacher Rod. That was fun.
For every guest, I have a sentence, a quote, a takeaway to finish. And for you, I have two, because we connected, I think, on a higher source. The first one is when I am weaker that I feel stronger. And the second one, which reminds me so much of you, I am because we are. Ubuntu.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's the way I want to finish this wonderful interview with this wonderful human being. Thank you, Christian Sanders, for having a live stream with Teacher Will, and I was there among the people in chat watching and trying to send you both a question. And today I talked to you on my humble channel. So I can't thank you enough for being here with me.
Thank you very much, Teacher Rod. Continued blessings to you, and thank you for the work that you do. I'm really very appreciative. I'm humble. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope you guys liked it. See you next week. Thank you. See you.
Hello, it's Rod's friend here, Gino from Real Everyday English. Sorry for interrupting your video. I just want to make a quick recommendation that you subscribe to Rodrigo's channel. He's an amazing guy, he's so humble, he's so dedicated, and he creates absolutely fantastic content. See you people soon. Bye bye, God bless.